Is this thing on? I think it is on. Hey everyone, this is Kevin T. Rodriguez, film critic of iCritic.net, and welcome to another episode. I believe this is episode 2 of iCritic Live. And today we are going to be discussing the Chippendale Rescue Rangers movie. Now, some of you might be asking, well, why don't I just write a review or do a typical 10 to 15 minute video review for this? Well, the Chippendale Rescue Rangers movie is such a strange beast that I figured it would take longer than 15 minutes. So we might as well do it live, especially so that anyone watching can participate and bring up things if they want. But I also wanted to talk with a buddy of mine who is a Disney afternoon kid, I guess you can say. Me and him did not grow up together, but we grew up on the Disney afternoon block. So we remember Chippendale Rescue Rangers growing up. And this guy is also a bit of an accomplished animator in his own right. I would like to introduce my buddy, Michael Cook. Welcome, Michael.
Oh, what an introduction. Thank you so much, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And in fact, I probably should have brought this up to begin with, but you are actually the creator of this TV series, or this web series, I should say.
Right.
Let me see if I can't bring it up real quick. Of this thing, Chucky Chicken.
Yeah, that's me. That's my guy. Yeah.
That's your guy. That's your animation. That's also your voice if we were to play it. But anyway, we wanted to. Interestingly, I remember first seeing this guy in 2010 because, like I mentioned before, you and I did not grow up together. But one thing we did do is we both joined the Disney college program in California in 2010, and that is where we met. That is where we shared a love of animation, and that is also where I introduced you to like the Nostalgia Critic, and I hear you did some very interesting things with that information.
Yeah, you hit it right on the button there, buddy. Yeah, I've actually had the pleasure of working with Doug and a few of the other folks at Channel Awesome over the years. I was a part of a show called The Cartoon Guy Show with the late great Justin Barnes, who created the show and was gracious enough to hire me on to be a part of it, which was amazing. And over the years, I've gotten to know Jim really well, Jim J. Roz, and of course Malcolm Ray and Tamara. I mean, and Walter. Of course, Doug. So there are a bunch of really great guys. But yes, you were the guy who basically introduced me. And because I told you I was a big fan of Sonic the Hedgehog, and you were like, bruh, you got to see this. And I've been hooked ever since.
Yep. And I remember you completely had that thing. You were like, oh, I bet I know what he's going to say about the Saturday morning Sonic cartoon. And I was like, oh, I bet you don't know what he's going to say.
You know, it was funny. I had no idea what he was going to do. And I hated him because I loved Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog so much. So, yeah, I mean, that was the one that I grew up with. But
yeah, well, we grew up with both of them because they aired the same year.
Yeah.
But, you know, the funny thing is, as a huge Sonic fan, and it is true that being a Sonic fan is like being a Cubs fan. You get your heart broken a lot.
Yeah. But, especially when you're a Chicago boy like me, you get it broke constantly. It's a double whammy, man.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're that Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog show, I mean, yeah, you have fond memories watching when you're young, but then you get older and it's like, boy, it really wasn't very good.
Well, think about it. We had the fractured fan base all the way back then because there were people who thought, you know, there were people who genuinely thought that Sonic was a comic book first or a TV show first and didn't realize that it was based off of a video game. But
which is how I was introduced to him.
Right. Me as well.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, we attended the Disney college program together.
Yep.
We both have an affinity for Disney animation and love your Chucky Chicken cartoon is very reminiscent of '30s Mickey Mouse cartoons. It's in some ways a spiritual successor, unlike those really weird things that are currently airing on Disney XD.
We try, we really do.
Yeah.
So
So when I didn't think about this when I heard about the Chippendale Rescue Rangers movie, which, if you don't know, this is what it is. And yeah, so this is a thing. And here's the thing. When I first heard about this and they said, and it's coming straight to Disney Plus, first reaction was, well, that's going to suck. That is absolutely going to suck. I mean, I know some people say, oh, well, it's the future, giving away movies for free on the internet. No, it's not the future. I think that's pretty much been established that no one was able to make money on this practice during the lockdowns. But now, more than ever, sending it straight to Disney Plus, in my opinion, is a vote of no confidence. But on the other hand, Disney Plus movies have been kind of sporadic in that regard. Right. Artemis Fowl, you can totally tell why they wanted to give that movie away. Like, I felt bad for that movie. It was so bad.
Yeah.
But Stargirl, that was actually a nice little gem. And I've heard some actually fairly positive things about Sneakerella. So I walked in with an open mind, and after I saw that, I knew the person that I wanted to do a live stream discussion on this movie with, because I don't have a lot of friends who look back fondly on the Disney afternoon who watched Chippendale. Like, I think you and I were alive when Chippendale was a first run cartoon.
Yeah, I was born in '88, so I was right there. Yeah.
Do you feel old yet?
I felt old for 5 years.
Yeah. I might have felt old for 10 years, but oh my gosh. So I knew I wanted to talk about this with you, because after I watched it, I definitely had a lot to say about it, and I figured you would have a lot to say about it. So
I do, yes.
For those people who do not want to join in for the nitty-gritty long discussion, and I suspect it will be a long conversation, we'll just get the really basic recommendation, not recommendation thing out first, and then we will just discuss in full. So first question, did you like this movie or not in general?
I have to admit, I went in with extraordinarily low expectations. I went in basically hating the movie, and I have to admit, I did kind of enjoy it a little bit, but not for the reasons that most people would enjoy a movie like this.
Right. So my short answer is that as a movie, I also did enjoy it. I actually have written a 3.5-star review, which you guys can read on my iCritic website. But here's a more complicated question. This is why we're doing the podcast. Did you like this as an adaptation of Chippendale Rescue Rangers?
You know, again, yes and no. I do have to admit that there was a lot. It's more Roger Rabbit than it is Rescue Rangers, in my opinion. They got the mystery element going on. You kind of knew who the villain was going in. I would have to say, as a fan of Rescue Rangers, a fan of the characters, when I'll just kind of go ahead and say when they first announced it and they said that Andy Samberg and John Mulaney were going to be in it.
Well, right now we're doing the short answer. So, yes and no as a Chippendale Rescue Rangers.
My apologies. Okay, go ahead. No sorry.
So
yes and no.
Okay, so my answer is no. I actually think this was like a very terrible adaptation of Chippendale Rescue Rangers. So that is where the conflict's going to go in. Now let's talk about the movie aspect first, because I do agree it is very Roger Rabbit-like. But then I've been having like a big issue with movies recently, and I don't know if you're in this boat with me. I'm getting a little tired personally of meta movies. I guess that's what they're being called now. Movies that seem to... So let me put it this way. It's a very probably one of the most graphic review lines I'd ever written for a review. But I wrote a print review for Ralph Breaks the Internet, which was Wreck-It Ralph 2.
Right.
And I wrote a line at the time. And for the record, folks, I gave Ralph Breaks the Internet 3 stars, so technically it's a recommendation, and it proves that the Emoji Movie didn't have to be that terrible. I actually wonder if they made that movie just to prove that the Emoji Movie could have been halfway decent had they tried. But
I still think it should have been Popeye, but go ahead.
yeah. But I did write that watching Frozen and Zootopia was like watching Disney create magic, and watching Ralph Breaks the Internet was akin to watching Disney masturbate. And yeah, it's a graphic line. Some people are like, oh, don't say it. It's like, no. It really is quite, it's quite fitting, because like you think about it, what's Ralph Break the Internet really about? Oh, look, we own Star Wars. We own Marvels. We've got Stanley cameoing. We've got the princesses. And yeah, it has a story, but the things that you memorize the most is like, oh, look, they interacted with Eeyore, or these characters did this. And I've just been noticing there's a lot of that. And I'm going to exclude Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, because they did cross-referential things to things that most people haven't seen. But now you get to Spider-Man No Way Home, and what's the thing that people remember most? They remember, oh, it's 3 Spider-Mans. Look, it's this actor from the Sam Raimi films. And then you go to Doctor Strange, and it's a very similar thing. Like, oh, look who they've got as Mr. Fantastic. Look, it's Captain America, except Peggy Smith is being it. Oh, and that guy from Inhumans, that TV show none of us liked, so ABC canceled it after 1 season. He's back. And I'm kind of getting tired of movies where it's like, yeah, we're throwing in as much stuff that you recognize as possible, because we don't have a good movie. So we're going to distract you with all this stuff you remember. Now, Chippendale Rescue Rangers wasn't quite like that. Chippendale Rescue Rangers has the little added benefit that I believe the movie is poking fun at the reboot and meta thing while also doing it. But it wanted to be more spiritually to Roger Rabbit. And I was rubbed the wrong way when the movie was announced and what was trending, Roger Rabbit, because we'd all much rather see a Roger Rabbit sequel than a Chippendale sequel. And then Ugly Sonic was trending because, I guess Paramount actually found a way to license that bad design.
I mean, they knew how to make it work, man.
Yeah, they knew how to make it work. Although, on a side note, I will say, watching the Ugly Sonic in this movie does prove, at least in my mind, that they made the right idea to change it, because it was as much as hideous in long sequences as it was in short bits and pieces. So, this is where I'm kind of a little mixed on Chippendale Rescue Rangers. Like, I don't like that they're basically being meta and they're just throwing in all these things, because my biggest laughs and oh my goodness, were scenes like, oh my gosh, it's Randy Marsh from South Park. Oh, look, Butthead is running as a politician.
Right.
Ugly Sonic has a small... So that's not storytelling, in my opinion. But since they have this whole reboot thing going, and they're kind of doing that thing where they're establishing very early on that cartoon characters and live actors live side by side, they can get a little bit of flexibility. So I don't know. What do you think about all that, and how did you react to that aspect?
I was very surprised, to say the least. When I saw a lot of the cameos that they had in the movie, and I don't know if you're doing spoilers or not.
Yeah, there's total spoilers in this one. Just a heads up to everyone.
To see, not only did they get Ugly Sonic, they got the My Little Ponies. They got, like you said, Randy Marsh and Butthead and a lot of other, characters from different studios, which to me is insane.
They got a character from Big Mouth in there. That was what really surprised me.
Yeah. In terms of the meta humor, I did a variety show for years called Hodgepodge Tonight, where we poked fun at very Muppet style humor, where we knew we were putting on a show, and it was kind of like that kind of meta humor. But this was back in 2012, like 10 years ago when we were doing this. So I can appreciate it a little bit, but I do agree that there is a lot to be said for having that get in the way of the storytelling. What I enjoyed about the film, I don't know if we're there yet, but I will say that it was very interesting to see the characters that weren't the Disney characters. I've always been on the fence of like, if you're going to do a Disney movie, do a Disney movie, you know. But
Right.
when I heard that this was more of a Roger Rabbit spiritual successor, I'm like, okay, going in, you know, guns ablazing, ready to hate this thing. The animation on the characters that were not Chip and Dale. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, this movie was composited very strangely.
Yes. I loved seeing Lumiere. I thought that was really fun. I enjoyed seeing. There were moments that I really had a big goofy smile on my face. Now, when you're talking about the meta humor, are you talking about how they referenced that they were doing a TV show, or that they were in Hollywood, or
Yeah, they're just talking about everything, like, you know, how they made this TV show and they're
right,
referencing the fact that they want a reboot, and it's like nobody wants reboots. They're tired
right,
of reboots, and it's like, yeah, so basically and I mean, also that line from Ugly Sonic where it's like, you know, it's funny if you're in on the joke, and it's like, yeah, they're doing that because they're going to do a very stereotypical reveal, which
right.
is the Gumby style cop, which another side note, I wonder if that was supposed to actually be Gumby, but then Fox bought Gumby during production. I have no evidence of this. I can't prove it, but I mean, his shape, the way his hands looked and everything, it's like, I wonder if that was supposed to be Gumby, and then
Well, wouldn't
he
that
was
be
bought.
Disney owns 20th Century Fox. They don't own Fox outright.
They
So.
own 20th Century. Fox is its own studio now, and
Oh, okay.
after Disney bought the 20th Century aspects and the library and stuff, then Rupert Murdoch went on a spending spree and bought things like Tubi, and they bought Gumby for $20 million. Like,
Well,
I don't think Gumby's worth $20 million. I guess we'll see, though.
I mean, he's been around forever, so I would
Yeah, but
for 60 years, but they haven't done anything with them.
no.
Everyone, it's anyway. Well, that's a whole nother discussion for another day.
That's a whole nother thing. So yeah, you know, all of that. I got a kick out of the. By the way, I also wonder this part, but the Roger Rabbit. We're doing the Roger Rabbit with the Roger Rabbit, and it's
With
like
Roger
not only
Rabbit,
was that a cool scene that I would have loved to have been surprised. I also wonder if they put that in the previews to kind of test to see if there was demand for another Roger Rabbit movie. They even mentioned Jessica Rabbit, which it's like I was very surprised at.
right? And if I'm not mistaken, I believe they got Charlie Fleischer to reprise his role for the movie as Roger.
He did. What kind of
cool.
call was that? What call was that? Was have been like, hey, you want to come back to voice Roger Rabbit again? Great, good. We'll give you $50 to do 2 lines.
Yeah, I'm sure it was much more than $50.
Well, they have to pay scale, so I think he had to make at least $140,000. But he came in just to do woohoo! This is great.
Yeah, what a payday, you know, and hopefully he was excited about it. But to talk about that, I will say this: the fact that they referenced them being TV stars, in a way, I can't believe I'm saying it. It saved a lot of face with me because the way that I went in, I saw on Clownfish TV that they were doing this movie and that everyone was hating it, and I joined in and I basically said, listen, I hate the fact that they're bringing on celebrities to do classic characters, especially when Corey Burton, Tress MacNeille, and everyone else who have been doing Chip and Dale and the Rescue Rangers for decades are still alive. They're still working. They're still doing their thing. They're still voicing the characters on Disney. Why do you need these guys to come in and do this? I mean, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And it just is like to me, it was like the Lonely Island people saying, yo, we want the Rescue Rangers. We don't care. We'll pay you $1 bajillion. And Disney says, go for it. Um,
Yeah. By the
uh,
way, I don't think people are hating this movie as much as Clownfish TV, who I do like, but they tend to be overreactors sometimes.
a little
Like,
bit.
I mean, 80% critics, 82% audience score. I mean,
Yeah.
that seems pretty good to me.
Well, like I said, that saved the movie a little bit for me. I mean, they brought in when when they showcased that they still did the voices, and they still had Corey Burton come in, and they had Tress MacNeille come in and do the TV voices.
Right.
I thought that was ingenious, and I thought, okay, you get it. You
Yeah.
understand how important it is to the show. You're not going to throw that away. I loved how they did the brand new animation for that one scene that
Mm-hmm.
showcased, Dale getting hit with the pipe and, having Fat Cat in there. And that was really, really well done. And that was cool. So that saved it for me a little bit. I mean, to be mad about the meta humor, I totally get it. I mean, I like the concept of the bootlegging because that's something that we all deal with. We've fallen prey to it, and I'm glad that they acknowledged it. And that was a fun scene at the end with Pete and as Prince Ali. I thought that was really fun.
Yep. The animation with the Simpsons
Yeah.
bootleg, which I also we do want to spend some time at one point talk about the animation, but I also thought that was interesting how like the animation was better when it wasn't interacting with the live action world. But I mean, the meta humor. I'm not saying I'm mad at the meta humor, by the way. It's actually done a little bit better this time around than the other times I've seen it.
Sure.
Like I said, at least there's like a story where it's like, oh yeah, there's cartoon characters and live actors. They live together,
right?
And they were making the show, and then they stopped making the show. And I mean, the idea that Dale basically got plastic surgery to save his career so that he could be in future projects, like that was a clever idea. Even if I think aesthetically speaking, I would have preferred he look like a hand-drawn character,
right? But I mean, taking into account who the character is.
Yeah, he'd probably do that.
He would do that. That is a Dale move. I mean, I'm just,
Yeah.
It makes sense for his character.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And the story, I mean, and keep in mind, this is like a kid's movie. Like, so we don't want to look for Agatha Christie or Alfred Hitchcock style mystery here. We are looking for Rescue Rangers type mystery. Right. And I guess on that level, it's okay, and in fact, the mystery might be the closest thing to the Rescue Rangers aspect,
right?
That the movie has. Otherwise, I guess where the meta humor actually annoys me a little is how they do reference why doing certain things in movies are a bad thing. Like, you don't want cartoon characters to rap. Rapping chipmunks are a bad idea, and then they have the chipmunks rap, and it's like, so that was basically saying, sorry, we're going to do this again. I guess we have to do this. It's like, but you don't have to do it. You wrote in why you don't have to do this, and you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. If you're going to announce the trope and why it sucks and then do the trope anyway, it's better to just come up with something more original and be like, no, we're not going to stoop to that level. We're going to do something different, which they failed. But that's what people want to see. Unfortunately, that's the common audience today.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, you kind of wonder, do the studios learn anything from Shrek? Because people go like, well, Shrek had the big reveal moment, and there was a big moment that not only did the Chip and Dale movie reference, it was when Dale got hit with the cannonball,
right?
Like, and then they did it anyway, and it was annoying. It's like, have you learned nothing on why Shrek was embraced when it came to the tropes? Because Shrek did the misunderstanding trope, and then when Fiona turned into the ogre, normally it would be the scene like, oh, I wish I'd known. And then they rush in these others' arms, and Shrek just looked like, well, that explains a lot, and everyone loves it. And it's like, why haven't people realized that's how you include the tropes, but you turn it on the head? You do something a little different with it.
I know. That's Hollywood though, and that's
that's Hollywood, and
if you
I
want
guess
originality, go to the independent scene. There's a lot of it there, you know.
oh yeah, Everything Everywhere All at Once is a much better multiverse movie than Doctor Strange, I want to say.
Right.
Like a way better one. But anyway, now on that note, because the movie is about Chip and Dale as actors and they made the show and stuff, and they have a mystery. I said that the mystery was like the one aspect of the Chip and Rescue Rangers thing that actually felt like Rescue Rangers.
Right.
Otherwise, nothing about this felt like Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. In fact, dare I say it, I might have even enjoyed the movie just a little bit more. Not that it would have gotten 4 stars, but I would have liked it just a little bit more had it been just a Chip and Dale movie rather than a Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie, because I know that sometimes as fans, this is where like my head will start to explode because I'm a critic and a fan in this case.
Right.
Where the fans complain, like, for example, the new Halo series. Oh, it's not like the games. They're not following the story. Master Chief is taking off his helmet too much. And as the critic, I have to say, yeah, but they're doing something different. This is their interpretation.
Right.
But in this case, why are you making it a Rescue Rangers movie when you are actually not only not making a Rescue Rangers movie, not really, but you're actually removing elements that made Rescue Rangers. Like, okay, so it's got a mystery. Well, any movie would probably have a little bit of a mystery just for, giving them something to do. But like, it's like, okay, where's the Rescue Rangers crew? Like, seriously, isn't one of the fun things about Rescue Ranger like, Monterey Jack, Zipper, Gadget? Heck, I kind of recall Gadget being the most popular character in that show. She's so popular that there is a cult in Russia. You can look this up, by the way, folks. You can look this up. There is a cult in Russia that worships Gadget. And by the way, when I noticed that she wasn't in the previews and that it was like a friend has been kidnapped, considering how meta it was, I half was wondering, are they going to have Russians capture Gadget and they have to save her from a cult? I was really thinking they were going to do it, but they didn't. It was Monterey Jack that got captured, and it was like...
Well, considering modern times, maybe that's the best thing that they didn't do that.
It probably is. Granted, when they were making this, they had no idea what was going to be going on in that regard. Yeah. But then, of course, that brought up like an extra question. Okay, well then, where's Gadget? Why isn't she helping them with her, equipment and things like that? Especially since they made a joke later on, like, I guess TV Gadget and personal Gadget were the same person. And it's like, okay, so why wasn't she called early on? You could make this more like Rescue Rangers by having her, like, when I'm thinking, like, if I'm putting myself as a kid, and granted, I know that it's a little bit of a different circumstance because the show is 30 years old. Kids today probably have not been watching Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers for the most part.
Probably, I mean, unless their parents
showed it and stuff. So, I mean, I have to add that little asterisk. But like, if someone came to me and said, "Hey, they're making a Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie," and I would have been excited, I'd be watching the movie, and as a kid, I wouldn't be getting the meta references, and I actually wouldn't even be recognizing half the characters because they got cartoons from R-rated cartoons for a lot of the cameos, strangely enough. And I'd be wondering, like, where's Gadget? Where's Monterey Jack? Where's Zipper? Why isn't Chip wearing his hat and jacket? In fact, that is especially strange because at one point he finally gets it and then he takes it off again. It's like, isn't half the fun of having a Rescue Rangers Chip that he can wear the Indiana Jones hat and jacket?
Right. Yeah. And in a way, it also dates the movie. And I will say this. One thing that I have always applauded Disney for in the past is their ability to make content that is timeless. You can watch the original Rescue Ranger show today, and it is just as good today as it was 30 years ago. Same thing with shows like DuckTales or Tailspin or, all of those classics from the Disney afternoon. Right. By doing I was put off when they said they were doing a Rescue Rangers movie and they were making it live action. I thought that was just not okay, and another black mark against Hollywood. And then, I had a little, and then I was completely disinterested when I saw Dale in CGI. I'm like, yeah, no, not going to do it. But I buckled and I watched it. I get where you're coming from. And in a way, with I think the way that they did the movie and the way that they did the introduction, to all the cast in the beginning, you did get to see them in their classic Rescue Rangers outfit. You got to see them doing stuff from the cartoon. You got to see bits of the cartoon, which was awesome. And then later on in the movie, when everyone is back together, I could see where they were going with it, where they needed to earn that ending. In my opinion, you're right. It is a Chip and Dale movie. It is not a Rescue Rangers movie. It is Chip and Dale acting as two solo Rescue Rangers.
Yeah,
and then meeting everybody else. Yeah.
And since it's really not a Rescue Rangers movie, why call it Rescue Rangers? I mean, they could actually have easily written in like, we first started in like commercials, then we co-starred with Donald Duck in several shorts, but we just never got that break and then they could reference the Rescue Rangers cartoon.
Right.
And then this actually creates two things. One, they go on and people aren't expecting it to be like a Rescue Rangers movie. It's just Chip and Dale doing something fun. And then how much better is it when the characters come in later on, because it wasn't promised to you much, much earlier. In fact, it was never promised at all. This is a Chip and Dale movie. And the fact that we actually got the gang together for a final shot. And then, of course, the final shot, it could be argued with botched because Monterey doesn't look the same. Gadget doesn't have the right costume. Chip's not wearing his hat still for some reason.
Yeah, I totally get, not to get off topic, but toward the end of the discussion, do you think you can answer? I know. That's up to only to come out. Do you expect that we'll get more of the Disney afternoon shows?
Yeah, I hear that Seth Rogen is rebooting Darkwing Duck, which we're not going to go too much into that. I'm just going to say I don't know why they're doing that, especially when
they're not directors. None of these guys, they're actors who grew up with this stuff, and they're putting on the director's hat, pretending to be people that they're not. And that bothers me.
They are writers. They have written several movies. It's just, I kind of look at it and it's like, why are you doing a reboot of Darkwing Duck when the DuckTales reboot gave you like the perfect launching point for a new Darkwing Duck show?
Right.
Like I really thought that with that DuckTales show, how they incorporated like Chip and Dale and all the Disney Afternoon, that they were going to create a new line of Disney Afternoon shows, but then it was like, nope, give it to Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. It's like,
it just
great. But anyway, so I'm watching.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just watching this movie, and it's like, why was this called Rescue Rangers? I mean, why isn't, and especially like, why isn't Gadget in there? It's like, she's the most popular character from the Rescue Ranger show. She's the only Disney Afternoon character to have a ride, because the Gadget Go coaster is still in Mickey's Toontown and it's still functional
for now. But actually, we don't know. We don't know if Gadget's coming back, because it's closed down now for that massive reimagining. So who knows? She may be gone.
I don't know why they would take it away. It's still a functional ride, and it doesn't take up a lot of space. But
they got rid of the tree house. They got rid of Chip and Dale's tree. So
this is true.
So they may just retheme it. They may make it Chip and Dale's coaster. It's sad. A lot of the cartoon, it just kind of. And what disappoints me about it the most is that Disney has always been, and this is just a side tangent, and you can stop me if you want. Disney has always been really good about preserving their legacy and reintroducing their properties to younger generations. I mean, how many decades did they re-release Snow White and Pinocchio, Fantasia, Peter Pan, The Jungle Book? Like, they had the 7-year rule where, they had the Disney Vault, for heaven's sake, and they had all of these opportunities to reintroduce the characters, and they did that for so many years. And then with the stuff from our generation, it just, I mean, I don't know if it's because they got a little lazy because the internet came around and then streaming services. It's like, oh, we'll just plop it here. And then if they care, they'll show their parents, their kids. And if they don't, then guess what? We don't have to market that aspect of our legacy anymore. And it's just, it's
that is just the general rule of thumb when it comes to remakes and reboots. Like, I mean, I can describe like we saw The Northman recently, and I could tell you like what it's about, and it's like I actually think Nostalgia Critic made this point where it's like I could talk about how, yeah, it's this Iceland movie about a prince whose father was murdered by his uncle, and he's banished, and he has to train and come back and avenge his father, save his mother, and there's religious overtones and trippy dream sequences and prophecies, and I can make this movie sound really interesting. And then I can say, or you can go see Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and it doesn't matter how good I made The Northman sound, you immediately have a connection with Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Right.
Because you grew up with it, you've heard of it,
right.
You don't have to be sold on it. And by the way, for the record, folks, yes, I did enjoy Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I also saw the Bob's Burgers movie last night, and I also enjoyed that.
I have not seen that one yet. So.
Yeah, it's not available to the public just yet. But
oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
yeah, opens Friday.
Another reason why I got to get my happy butt out to LA.
Enough. Yes, aside from the fact that we could hang out and do more of these podcasts in person.
Right.
But for the record, folks, all of these movies, Chip 'n Dale, Bob's Burgers, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, all of them 3.5 stars. So it's like, yeah, I'm enjoying them, but they're not exactly breaking the boundary of what film can do either.
Right.
Now, there is one more Rescue Rangers aspect that I want to talk about before we talk about the animation. Okay. And maybe even the budget, because I think you'll be surprised at how much money they spent on this. And it brings into a question why they would put it on Disney Plus.
Right.
I have no idea if I'm the only one that's going to be bothered by this. I sense I'm not, but I don't think I think everyone's been kind of hesitant to say it out loud.
Okay.
So I'm going to say it out loud.
Tell me this thing.
Nobody asked for Gadget to marry Zipper. Nobody asked for that. There was always a love triangle with Chip 'n Dale and Gadget. Many people leaned towards Chip because they had more in common. And I know that their defense is going to be, well, they're not the characters, they're the actors. I'm like, yeah, but nobody wanted this.
No.
Nobody. And I just looked at that and I was like, I don't know why they went in that direction. I mean, if anything, this was ripe to actually bring that love triangle full circle if they were really fans. And so it's moments like that where I'm wondering, because this is where the movie confuses me. And there's probably one more meta reference we'll have to talk about now that I'm on this topic, but it's like, how can these people be so knowledgeable about animation, the characters, and even the history of Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, and then they do something like this, and it's like, this is gonna piss all the fans off, and I feel like they should have known better than to do it.
You know, you could chalk that up to shock humor. I guess you could chalk that up to just wanting to make the kids laugh in the audience because they referenced it once. They didn't even bring in, I don't think they brought in any of the kids to my recollection. You know,
there were a couple there, but they weren't in it for very long.
Right. There's a couple of, I know the pictures were there, but, and then what made they got Dennis Haysbert as the voice of Zipper.
Yeah. And by the way, he was good. He was good. He was good. And since they are actors, okay, if you're gonna go with this joke that sound different, I mean, it was funny. Like my wife was like, "Oh, the Allstate guy," and it's like you will never live that down. So I mean, that was cute. But aside from like, not only are they not in most of this movie, we want to see them more often, but then they marry those two. It's like nobody wanted that.
No,
nobody wanted. that. You know what they wanted? They wanted Chip and Dale, after Monterey Jack was kidnapped, to call Gadget and tell her that their friend is missing, but they're going to find him. And then for her and Zipper to show up halfway through because he's her friend too, and she wants to help them. And,
Right.
you know, with Chip showing some maturity over Dale getting damaged, you know, Gadget finally admits that he has become the chipmunk she always wanted him to be, and now they can maybe pursue something. That's what the fans wanted.
Well, I will say this, that is probably why they did it the way they did it. Because let's be 120% open, clear, transparent, honest. Some fans are really creepy. You know?
I mean, oh, and what they did isn't actually going to end the creepiness. I mean, I think it just got a lot. I know you're talking about the furry community, but
not just that, but like I could see why they did it. I get it. Does it make any more sense? No, but again, you're talking about a Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie it's set in 2022. I mean, what do you what do you expect? I'm just,
well, if it's called Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, I expect a Rescue Ranger movie, and I mean, I've listed a lot of reasons why it's not, but that was like that was truly one of the weirdest aspects of the whole thing. Like, if you could, you know, and the thing is, that seems like, because there are two things that really made people very upset. This one, although I suspect no one wants to admit it's made them upset, but I've read some message boards where it's like, yeah, so Gadget and Zipper got married, and most of the comments are like, okay, I guess that's a thing.
Right.
Like, no one wants to admit that secretly makes them upset and annoyed. I mean, you know, I guess it's much more mature to see Jurassic Park 3 and say, wait a minute, Laura Dern and Sam Neill didn't get together? Are you kidding? I guess it's more appropriate to voice that objection,
right,
than to say you want the chipmunk and the mouse to get together.
You got to pick your battles, you know.
But at the same time, I just know that deep down, people are just annoyed by that one. Now, the other thing they're annoyed back is Peter Pan, and I did want to take just a little bit of time to address Peter Pan.
Sure.
Because, you know, you and I, because I think I am very curious to see what your opinion. So the controversy with Peter Pan, and I'm not, let me see if I can't.
It's Bobby Driscoll. They're comparing.
Yeah, it's Bobby Driscoll. But I want to, you know, have an
article,
an article so that people can see what exactly I'm talking about. I know you know what.
Right, and going on. And while you're looking it up, I can explain. So basically, Bobby Driscoll, he was he was one of the first child actors at the Walt Disney Studio in the 40s. He was in Song of the South. He was the voice and the model for Peter Pan. And he, unfortunately, I believe it was in 1967, after doing 20 years with the Disney Studio, after Walt died, they just kind of kicked him to the curb. He didn't get any residuals. He didn't get any anything for any of his work at Disney. And he died tragically at the age of 31. Kids found his body in the gutter, or in a river, I think, with an alcohol bottle. And nobody, and then he was buried in an unmarked grave of all the things. And the controversy is Peter Pan in the movie in Chip and Dale is the bad guy making reboots because the Disney Corporation did the same thing with him. Oh, they let him go because in real life, Driscoll had acne.
Yes. And in the movie, he got Peter Pan gets acne, and Disney no longer wants him. Now, here's kind of what I want to ask and / discuss, because this was brought up early on before I even saw the movie. And I said, you know what? That is probably a coincidence. I don't think that they were aware of that. I think they were just thinking Peter Pan syndrome. It's funny that Peter Pan couldn't really not grow up.
Right.
And I was being defensive, but then, as you watch the movie and you're looking in the background and it's like there's characters that resemble Max Fleischer and Felix the Cat cartoons and Betty Boop. And and you realize that the writers and director had clear, intimate knowledge of the animation industry and the characters and everything. They had a lot. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the meta was actually so good, is because they used the characters in ways that it's like clearly they knew
how to do it,
why they were using them in that way, because they were familiar with that history. So then I'm watching it, and near the end, I'm kind of going like, is it a coincidence? Because they seem to know an awful lot, and I don't know how they would miss that.
Well, I will say this. Bobby, and this may sound callous, it may sound cruel, but yes, he was also in Treasure Island as well. And that gets to my point.
Yeah.
He is not, yes, he's known as the voice of Peter Pan, but he is not animation history. If you're looking up Max Fleischer, if you're looking up Ub Iwerks, if you're looking up Chuck Jones, then like if they had a poorly, if they had a Friz Freleng joke, or they had a really bad Chuck Jones joke, absolutely, rake them across the coals. Bobby Driscoll, unfortunately, unless you are a mega Disney fan and now I will say this, I did not know that about Driscoll going into this movie. I also was with you where it was like, the Peter Pan syndrome, the boy who never grew up, but then he did. I would never have put two and two together unless I really dug it deep and found out about it.
And there is a thing as digging too deep sometimes.
We should
acknowledge.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I mean, I'm sure that the writers or whoever meant absolutely no disrespect to Bobby Driscoll. I'm sure they had. I don't know them. I don't know them personally, but I would assume that they just, like we talked about, like they never grow up. He grew up. It's a funny gag. It's a very funny gag that if anybody's going to get thrown out for growing up, it's freaking Peter Pan, because the boy doesn't grow up and he grew up. And it's like, that's why he didn't grow up. It's like he saw it coming. Now, is it spooky coincidence? Very spooky. It is. Now, if we find out later that the writers are like, oh yeah, we totally knew that about Driscoll and we put it in, that's a douchebag move. And then that's not okay.
Well, at that point, I wonder, is it a douchebag move, or is it like a major troll on Disney's part? Who knows? Maybe someone was secretly unhappy with the way Disney was dictating this thing, and it's like, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to reference one of the most shameful things that Walt himself ever did, and we know for sure the executives are not going to catch it before it gets out there.
Well, here's the thing, though. Walt personally didn't do it, because he died in 1966 and he was thrown out in 1967.
This is true. Yes, you're right.
So Walt had nothing to do with it. As a matter of fact, he protected all of the people that worked with him. Like, he protected Annette Funicello. He protected, Kurt Russell and all the young actors.
And, we have heard stories like the day after he died, like the Sherman brothers showed up to the Disney studios and
play the piano.
Their cards were deactivated.
Yeah,
they wouldn't let him on the lot. So
it's not Walt. It's the people who came in after Walt. That's another soapbox I'm not going to stand on and rant on this show. We're talking Chip and Dale, but I mean, I do think that if they went in knowing that history and they decided, screw it, we're going to do it anyway, it is very tasteless. It is very shameful, and shame on you.
Yeah, but here's one of the harsh realities, folks. Most people never would have noticed unless you were told.
Exactly. That is the sad thing. Like, now, go ahead.
That's kind of like one of the things. Not that we want to get into controversial topics, but there are movies, actors, and comedians that Twitter have deemed problematic and cancel, and the general public does not care because they are not aware. And if they are aware, they don't care. So I think I kind of want to give them the benefit of the doubt that maybe this was just a spooky coincidence.
Right.
But that said, they also seem to know their animation history. So
well, I will say this: if anything, it should open the discussion of, okay, what are we doing right now with our current child actors? And number two, who's still alive from that decade and from that time period that we can make sure are taken care of and getting the proper respect that they deserve and the proper accolades and compensation. Because, you know, that is ridiculous that happened. And yes, again, product of the time. It was the 60s. Terrible time to be alive. You know, terrible time all around. But still, if you can rectify it, if you can change it, then do it. But I'm not gonna condone a writer for whether or not he knew about Bobby Driscoll, because if we knew about it, I don't think they would have done it, to be honest with you, because that's not cool.
Right. Exactly.
Especially with the way cancel culture is today. If they went in knowing the history, they were jeopardizing their careers.
They would realize that people have way too much free time on their hand right now. And then of course the funny thing is the people who bring this stuff up is you kind of read the people who raise this objection, and it's like, I kind of wonder how big of a fan of Disney they actually are. They just happen to know this really sad story, and they found fresh meat and they jumped on it. So and it is surprising that Driscoll did not get the Disney Legends Award, I think. By the way, I am going to say on that comment, Bobby Driscoll is so getting the Disney Legends Award. I mean, Disney will deny that they knew anything, but they will say, but you know, now that you brought it up, we should posthumously give him the Disney Legend Award.
Well, I'm curious, what year did Peter Pan come out? Because if it's a big anniversary year and they don't have it, then let's see.
It was a while. I don't. Let me see. Peter Pan Disney 1953. So
all right. Well, next year is the 70th anniversary. So
that's their cover. That's going to be
their cover.
Their cover because look, even though I think Clownfish TV over dramatizes how bad Disney can be, they still do some bad things. So they're going to look at the situation and they're going to look at the Peter Pan and go like, well, next year's the anniversary of Peter Pan. It's a nice even number. So let's announce that with the anniversary, there's going to be like not only a new 4K physical media release that the hardcore fans can get, but we're going to award Bobby Driscoll the Disney Legends Award for voicing Peter Pan. And just to show that it also wasn't just him, all of the cast members are going to get Disney Legend Awards. The guy who played Captain Hook, the woman who played Wendy, they're all getting it.
Well, I think the girl, the lady who played Wendy is still around, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so they can actually have an award to hand it to someone. She might, and she might even get it for more than one thing because
she was Alice. She was
Alice, and she was a lot. So so anyway,
we're calling it now. We are calling it now.
We are calling it now. But anyway, so with the Bobby Driscoll thing out of the way, let's talk about the one more thing, and then we might take a couple questions if anyone has questions. So now's your chance to ask them. But as an animator yourself, I am pretty certain you want to talk about the animation style. And
do I?
I have so I want to talk about the animation style, and then I want to talk about the budget briefly, because I think the budget says a lot about this movie. But
tell me the budget first, so then I can either understand why or rake them over the coals even further.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. How much do you think this movie cost to make?
Well, you said you were surprised, so I'm going to say that it's at least I'm going to go right in the middle and say maybe $500 million.
Well, that's probably a little too high.
Okay. Maybe how about 50 million?
It's definitely higher than that.
Okay, 200?
Bingo.
$200 million to make this movie?
Yep, they spent as much money on this movie as Netflix spent on The Irishman.
Okay. That being said, I am very disappointed. Now, there were moments that made me smile, like I said before. The Rescue Ranger movie or show clip, when they actually showed a scene from the show, and it was a completely brand new scene. That was amazing. I applaud, my hats off to them. Good job. You did something right. The rest of the animation in the movie, I mean, come on.
So, so obviously, I think you and I are sitting on the same page. Chip is the biggest problem because he's not really. There's a lot of characters in this that do look like they were hand drawn, like
right. Roger Rabbit looks.
Roger Rabbit, Lumiere, the Three
right.
Pigs,
Yes.
Scat Cat. Oh my gosh, Scat Cat from the Paula Abdul music video.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I guess I should mention right now. No, folks, even though they bothered to get South Park, Big Mouth, and Beavis and Butthead in this thing, I guess Disney did not want to play nice with Warner Brothers.
Of course not.
So just throwing that out there. But,
right.
you know, like when you see, like, for example, Phineas and Ferb's mom, and she's clearly hand-drawn, it's like, okay, that looks
right.
good. But Chip...
Pete was hand-drawn?
Pete was hand-drawn.
Right.
But Chip is a CGI creation that they cel-shaded, and he looks... weird.
Him, Monterey Jack, all of the Rescue Rangers. And I will say this. I am so disappointed because if you're going to do a show like this and you're going to ride on the nostalgia of us particular, the millennials who know what these characters, how they look, how they move. We know that it was hand-drawn. We know the shortcuts that people take. We are not dumb as an audience. By taking these shortcuts, you are diminishing your trust with us further and further and further. There is no reason why. And I mean, in my opinion, it totally destroyed any sense of, like, if they were going to, like, it destroyed the whole purpose of the CGI joke. In my opinion, because if you had Chip as a 2D hand-drawn animated character, and then you had Dale as the CGI, okay, I'm with you. I'm pissed off at Dale. I'm still loving Chip. Like that, you could have sold me on it. But the fact that you went and did the and I get why they did it. You know,
because Chip has to interact with a lot of CGI objects, and it's a lot easier for him to do that if he is also CGI.
And that's exactly, and that's the point. Like it's a shortcut, it's easy. They were trying to get the movie out, they were trying to do it in record time.
Yep. I'm sure God knows we don't want to spend a lot of money on this movie.
No, of course not, because why on earth would Disney spend $1 bajillion on?
Well, the joke being is that they ended up spending a lot of money anyway.
Right, yeah. Probably those licensing deals that they had to pay.
I'm almost certain, like, if they did not have those licensing deals, this would probably be a, $50 million movie?
More than likely, 40. Yeah.
Like, it doesn't look like this should have cost $200 million.
No, not at all. And the fact that now if they had animated Chip in 2D and then it costs that much, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a little bit more.
I would much have rather you put the money in the animator's pocket and give them the work and say, okay, we're going to animate our characters and we're going to do it the old-fashioned way.
Well, not just the animators, but like the props people too, because if Chip is a 2D animated character, he has to interact with real world objects. They might have to build some of those little mini robots that the animators have to animate over so that he can do that. But that's why they did it all CGI, because it's like, okay, we'll make the CGI objects
and that would be putting effort into a movie. And Lord knows that's not what we do anymore.
No,
you know, we don't put effort into movies anymore. We just slop them out to be current and to hit an anniversary or to build up nostalgia, and it's sickening, in my opinion. I would have much rather. And the other thing that really pisses me off about that is you claim to be a spiritual successor to Roger Rabbit. This movie wishes it had an ounce of what Roger Rabbit had in terms of production value. You know, anybody who thinks that this is a Roger Rabbit, a spiritual successor, I mean, in some cases, you're right. The melding of the worlds, the fact that it is a Hollywood movie, which Roger Rabbit was a Hollywood movie that was very meta for its time.
Mhm.
There are a lot, but in terms of
Well,
the production,
yeah, but also in terms of like Roger Rabbit, like they didn't go overboard with the cameos. They gave you
no,
just enough to show that they interacted with all the characters from the studios, but it was still about Roger Rabbit, which that's where the spiritual aspect falls apart because Roger Rabbit was about Roger Rabbit and his relationship with Eddie Valiant, whether
right.
or not his wife is actually loves him or not, and of course the humor. Chippendale Rescue Rangers is about look at all this nostalgia.
And here's
And
the thing: when Roger, I don't mean to cut you off. I do
no,
want to
sure.
say this point. When they did the cameos, they did them and they had an impact. They had Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse on the screen together for the first time and only time ever.
They had
Daffy and Donald Duck together on
the
the screen.
piano duel, an iconic scene.
Right.
Like, and also that bar scene very subtly hinting at like because the
The Ink and
Roger
Paint
Rabbit
Club.
book, for those of you who are not aware, the Roger Rabbit book is an allegory for racism.
Right.
And the Ink and Paint Club kind of highlight that in the movie where like all the cartoon characters were serving the humans and not being able to enjoy the shows that
Right.
their fellow cartoons put on
Right.
themselves. So, there was something there to be said. Like, I mean, now look at this clip from like, with the Seth Rogen character. I mean,
Yeah.
and you said things like this kind of annoy me a little, not only because I think motion capture was really getting much closer to actually being something really good.
Mhm.
And when people say, oh, no one liked the motion capture animations, like, well, people still watch the Polar Express, so as weird as it looks,
Well, they
someone
poke fun
liked
of it in the movie.
yeah.
You
But
know?
like this scene where it's like, are you looking at it? No, I'm looking directly at you. And it's like, that was not the issue they had with the dead eyes.
No.
Like the characters in those movies were not just staring into the abyss. They were looking at other characters. They just looked lifeless.
Right, exactly.
And by the way, that's a problem that Avatar had fixed. So had Mars Needs Moms not completely tanked the way it did,
Mm-hmm.
and we had gotten one more movie, they might have perfected it by then.
Probably. I totally forgot about Moms Meet Mars.
Yeah, a lot of people forgot about Mars
But
Needs Moms. By
that
the way,
character was hand drawn.
yeah, like that's the thing. You can tell when the characters are hand drawn,
Right,
and when they're not, and it's like it's so much nicer looking when they are hand drawn. And by the way, I loved how the suits that they're wearing. It's like a little bit of a reference to the first Chippendale solo short where they
with Clarice.
Yeah, Clarice, the
Yeah.
lounge singer mouse. So I think I wonder if that's a throwback to that.
If she had appeared in the movie, it would have. I think that would have just been a home run. I really would have loved to have seen her in the movie.
It does highlight my point that this should have been a Chippendale movie, not a Chippendale Rescue Rangers movie.
And I'm sure, you and I look at it as Disney fans and go, oh, yeah, two monks and a lady. Other people just go, oh, they're just dressed nice. And, it's sad because, unfortunately, nobody's, unless you're like an extreme Disney nerd or you're an animator or you get the reference, they're not going to get it right away because nobody watches those old cartoons anymore, which is sad.
Well, and also Disney, in all fairness, is not doing a very good job at putting them on their platform.
Again, that's my point. Like, again, it goes back to, updating the legacy and letting people know, like, hey, here's Cinderella, more than just freaking Moana and Anna and Elsa and, Coco and all these films from, today. I get it. Give us the stuff that we had before. Like, remind us of, Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland or the classic cartoons. Like, why are we not seeing more Horace and Clarabelle? Where are the Silly Symphonies? Where's Oswald, for God's sake?
Well, Oswald showed up in those epic Mickey games, and you never heard from him. But although, if you want to know, in the Doctor Strange movie, the kids are watching the
And
TV and Oswald is on the TV, and it was
Right.
like, that's when
know.
that's when I thought to myself, like they are totally in an alternate reality if they if they think kids are watching that on Disney.
It's like, we see what you're doing. You are not fooling anyone. But no,
Yes.
I agree. There are only 84 classic shorts on Disney Plus. Yeah, exactly. Like, to think that Disney used to be the Hollywood studio that had the best archive, and Looney, like, that's a little side tangent here. The Warner Brothers did not give two craps about the Looney Tunes. As a matter of fact, Jack Warner closed down the animation department in the 50s because he wanted to invest in 3D technology and 3D movies. And when that tanked, then they brought back the Looney Tunes and they brought back the studio. So, and then when they went to television, they used the Screen Gems media label because they didn't want Warner Brothers associated with the Looney Tunes because they were afraid that they were going to damage the brand of Warner Brothers. And now you go to today, Warner Brothers are embracing the Looney Tunes. They're embracing animation, and Disney is failing so hardcore. It is ridiculously ass backwards. I'm really upset about it. And
yeah, since we're talking about Looney Tunes, and we're not going to get too deep into this, but I will say this.
Okay.
Chippendale Rescue Rangers did a much better job collecting all the different IPs together in useful ways than Space Jam: A New Legacy did.
Yeah.
That really annoyed me. It was like that. It's like I remember thinking like, oh, I hate that they're putting it on HBO Max in the same day. And then when I watch it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is literally an HBO Max commercial. And they were also bringing in properties like Game of Thrones that it's like, I don't want my kids knowing what Game of Thrones is just yet.
Right.
Yet. So anyway,
it was funny. It was funny seeing Foghorn Leghorn on the dragon. That was
but
cute.
it didn't mean anything. But then, of course, it's like, wait a minute. So you can go to the DC universe and you don't want to get Superman on your basketball team? Come on. And we're not talking about that movie. You make one point. Make a point real quick, and then we'll move on.
They cut out Pepe Le Pew from Space Jam, but then a couple months later, they bring him back in the Animaniacs reboot.
Right. And nobody cares.
Right.
because it's like, this was really also the whole shtick with Pepe Le Pew. Let me make myself bigger briefly. Like, people don't understand. It's like, it's not, and really watch the Pepe Le Pew cartoons. It's not that people hate Pepe Le Pew. He stinks.
Right.
He's Pepe Le Pew.
Right.
That's the shtick.
That's the shtick. I know. And unfortunately, I get it. I do a podcast with a good buddy of mine, Brian Finley, the Producers Without a Clue, and he is the head of Drawn to It Studios, and we had this discussion, and he brings up a point, that same point where it's like, Pepe Le Pew has a bad stigma today, and I'm like, well, when I was a kid, I just knew that he stunk.
Yeah.
That's I wasn't even thinking about any of the other stuff. It's not until you tell me that, or you put that on the character, that all of a sudden he has that stigma. And because because you can make anything bad if you really, really want to, and then it's the uphill battle to either be the sane one and say, shut the hell up, it's a cartoon, or acknowledge that, yes, it was wrong, it was a different time, but we can be better.
Yeah. So it might even be just as well that he wasn't put in Space Jam: A New Legacy, because the scene involved him like being told about not touching, and it's like, okay, so the movie didn't even understand what Pepe Le Pew was. Like, ironically, the first Space Jam did, because Pepe Le Pew was thrown in the game just long enough to get the aliens to faint from his bad smell. And anyway,
yes, exactly. Go on.
We don't want to get on Space Jam: A New Legacy. That's a whole other episode. Although maybe we should talk about it sometime. That might be fun. So
have me back and we'll talk about it when I have my camera.
Yeah. So Anyway, on one final note, with that $200 budget, by the way, I love this promotional poster where they have the
The mini
super
script.
small. That's cute.
I will say that is.
So knowing that Disney spent $200 million on this thing, like, I'm just like, okay, let me put it this way. You know how Netflix stock has been tumbling because basically people caught on that, yeah, you can't be spending $200 million on The Irishman when it doesn't really do anything for you financially?
Right.
Disney's making the exact same mistake with movies like this, and it's like, okay, we're giving away Turning Red, $100 million film, just going to be free. They don't make anything from it. And now Chip and Dale, $200 million. It's like, these are the kind of mistakes that caught up with Netflix and bit them in the butt. How much longer do you think Disney's going to actually do this?
I got two schools of thought on it. The first one is, if number one, if they had made this movie in the Roger Rabbit style, but it was the origin story of Mickey Mouse back in the 20s, going from like the vaudeville days, making his way from New York to Hollywood, meeting his friends along the way, maybe interacting with Pete on a steamboat, and then
maybe having an Alan Menken song or two.
Right.
I could see that working.
I wrote that movie 20 years ago. I wrote that movie when I was in high school. It was called Mickey Mouse from Vaudeville to Hollywood. I actually wanted to make that movie. And we contacted Disney when I was in college, and they sent me a cease and desist. So,
that sounds like a very Disney thing to do. Disney also was making a Roger Rabbit movie where Roger was going through the 20 Hollywood scene as well, and that didn't get made.
Right. If they had done that movie, it would have been worth the $200 price tag. It would have, and if it came out next year, in 2023, you got the 95th anniversary of Mickey Mouse. You got the 100th anniversary of the company. You're paying tribute to both Disney and Mickey. It's a home run. You got the Roger Rabbit style. I don't even care if you do the cell shaded, animation, because then at that point you can do what they did with Get a Horse. There's a way that you could have made that movie and made it really cool without all the meta references, without all the extra characters. You would have saved a fortune on royalty fees. But Disney, you didn't need the Lonely Island involved in this. There's a reason why they're doing this. They're banking on the millennial nostalgia, and it sucks. And it's not okay. Go ahead.
And Ugly Sonic is there basically to get trending on Twitter, which,
correct,
in all fairness, it worked, but that's why he's there.
It worked for the wrong reason. Disney, clearly, this is their Space Jam. And it, I wasn't a big fan of the story of Space Jam. I'm not a big LeBron James fan. I love the fact that they hand drew the animation for the most part in Space Jam. That was great. I'm thankful that we got to see both CGI and the classic versions of the Looney Tunes. And I loved how they hated the fact that they were in 3D, except for Daffy, because he's Daffy, but whatever.
Right.
The other point I want to make is it's kind of to bounce off the whole royalty thing. You could have made it any other movie. You could have just kept it strictly Disney. You have enough to make it Disney. You didn't need to go out of your way. There were so many other ways that you could have done this movie.
I mean, in all fairness, I appreciate that they went out of their way to do it the way they did. It was just, I'm just kind of, because I don't know about you, I'm a Disney investor. I have stock in Disney, and as a Disney investor, I'm looking like, okay, we like it when you do these extra things, because usually doing the extra things make people want to pay money to see it. But
correct,
no one's paying money to see this.
No, and if this had been released in the movie theaters,
I think it would have done well, actually. Maybe not $1 billion well, but it would have had enough word of mouth to at least crack 100 million domestically.
It would have recouped and maybe made a little bit of a profit. No one's denying that, but
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, I just think that it is. You mentioned Turning Red.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of controversial things about Turning Red going in. I saw it. I loved it. I thought
Yeah.
it was a great film. I thought it was very well done.
Yeah. It was very well done.
Extraordinarily well done. I truly feel that Disney is shooting now, and again. We had COVID. We're still dealing with COVID. People are saying
Yeah.
COVID's going away. It's until they announce it's over, it's still here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Probably will
that
never really go away. We just have to deal with
probably,
it.
yeah, probably not. But as as things start to kind of slow down a little bit, people are going into the movie theaters. I saw Sonic the Hedgehog in theaters 4 times. I am
Twice.
twice on a date, once by myself, and then once with my brother. I loved it all 4 times. I thought, that's how good of a movie it was to me. But I grew up playing Sonic 2. That was my first video game ever. Chip and Dale, I went in with very low expectations, and I think that's the only reason why I kind of liked the movie as much as I did. If I had gone in with higher expectations, expecting more out of a Chip and Dale's movie, if I was like you said, if you were expecting more of the cartoon, you were expecting more characters from the cartoon, if you were expecting to see Fat Cat in a larger capacity, or to see other characters, the doctor that was inspired by
Dr. Nimble.
Dr. Nimble, yeah. Or any other,
which you kind of did in the background, but
but again, it wasn't like Fat Cat. Now you could argue that the main, Peter Pan kind of changed into a Fat Cat-esque bad guy, but it's not Fat Cat. It's
right. And then, of course, I know if they say, like, well, kids don't really know who Fat Cat is, it's like kids don't really know who Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers is either. I thought that's the whole reason you're doing the movie. Like, so.
And at that point, it's your responsibility as the company to make sure that if you are doing a reboot of a property, you need, or if you're going to be doing a project based on a certain property, you market the hell out of that original source. Yeah, I mean, look at the Jungle Book 2. The original Jungle Book was all over the place before that movie came out. We had the freaking, I've seen Disney direct to DVD sequels.
Yeah,
better marketed,
than this movie has been.
And
but on the other hand, what's the incentive to market this at the same time? People aren't. It's like, well, and that's why, and this is a whole nother discussion where it's like they've realized, like, yeah, you put a movie in theaters and the theater release gets excitement building for the streaming release. You just dump it onto streaming and it disappears after a week, which is one of the reasons why I didn't want to delay this too long, because if we talked about it next week, no one would have cared anymore. I don't know if people care now.
I'm sure people do. People are still talking about it. I mean, like you showed me, it's getting decent reviews, 83 by Rotten Tomatoes, or 80 by, either
80
way.
and 30. So, it's like pretty
83, 80. Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, my bottom line is I did enjoy Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers as just a fun little movie, especially one I didn't have to pay for, in all fairness. But as a Rescue Rangers movie, it's like, I would like to see them actually make a Rescue Rangers movie next time. Like, whether it be live action or animation, have the gang together. Don't go all meta on it. Go on an adventure. Like, I think that's kind of one of the things that I'm kind of missing from kids' movies. And the Sonic movie kind of did a little bit with it, thankfully. But where are the adventure movies for kids now? They're all meta and self-referential and referencing things that their parents watched.
Well, here's the other thing, too, that I want to point out. I don't think that Disney should be making kids' movies. I think they should be making family movies. They need to be making movies that both the kids and the adults will enjoy together, because that's been their bread and butter. If you go back to the 90s, when Chip and Dale was still popular, and you look at the movies that were coming out, I mean, we got Beauty and the Beast, we have Little Mermaid, Aladdin, The Lion King. All of those movies were not kids' movies. They were family. I mean, Beauty and the Beast
Was it Best Picture?
Yes, it was a
Best
Best
Picture
Picture nom.
nominee.
Exactly.
Yep.
So,
and I still hate that Silence of the Lambs won that. Granted, I totally understand why, but I'm still kind of like,
well, you know why? I'm sure it was a conspiracy. I'm sure that they didn't want Beauty and the Beast to win because that would acknowledge animation uh, as an actual filmmaking medium that deserves to be respected. And instead, they gave it to Silence of the Lambs, which I've seen. It is a magnificent film. I love Anthony Hopkins in it. I think it's very, very well done.
Yeah.
There was going to be.
And as Ryan pointed out, there actually was going to be a theatrical animated Chippendale Rescue Rangers movie in the 90s. But DuckTales, the movie, didn't do very well at the box office, which it's like... And, it's funny, like, had that happened today, I think DuckTales would have done very well, because back then, it was hard to convince parents, like, why am I taking you to the theater?
Yeah, it was the era of Care Bears. It was the era of the Care Bears movies.
Yeah, why am I taking you to a movie that you can see on TV for free?
Right.
And now it's very different.
Well, I think that's not too far-fetched to think of, because there was plenty of movies. There was, the Munsters had a couple of movies. There were a lot of films or TV shows that were turned into feature films that were in theaters. So that's not far-fetched, but I do agree. And the DuckTales movie was very good. I enjoyed it. I mean, we watched the hell out of it. But again, it was a Disney Toons production. It was not a Walt Disney feature animation. They were working on Aladdin, or they were working on something else. And, that was sort of the studio that eventually did all the direct-to-video.
Yep, and DuckTales is still their best one.
And it's still their best. I liked Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, the Three Musketeers. That is my favorite.
It's okay. I'm still a little surprised that movie looks worse than DuckTales the movie did, but By the way, we do have at least one question to answer.
Sure.
Ryan was like saying, so I'm interested to know if you think that the Chippendale Rescue Rangers, the complete series Blu-ray, only came out to promote this movie, or if you expect that we will get Blu-ray sets of more Disney afternoon shows. And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news.
Yeah.
I will say, I'm not saying it's impossible that we don't get more animated series on Blu-ray. It's always possible, but I think the primary reason we got this one is because the movie was coming out.
I agree. There's no reason for them really to anymore, with Disney Plus being the way that it is. And now, am I saying, would I be upset if they did? Absolutely not. I would love to see DuckTales. I mean, they've omitted episodes of some series. Like one of my favorite DuckTales episodes, Sphinx for the Memories, is not on Disney Plus.
Yeah, and they removed a DuckTales, not DuckTales, a Darkwing Duck episode with Hell, and there's that Tailspin episode with the bomb on the plane that's never... Right. So, I would like to see them release, provided the sets are going to be uncut and complete. I mean, if they're not, then I would frankly rather them just not even bother, because everyone's wasting their time at that point. Exactly. But here's the thing. If you want to see more, you buy them.
Exactly.
And you write letters, but primarily you buy them.
You buy them, you write letters, and then you stream the crap out of them on Disney Plus, and you put the numbers where the execs are going to see them. That's what you need to do. I mean, quite frankly, if they haven't released all of the Mickey Mouse, Goofy, Donald Duck classic shorts, or even put any of the Oswald material or any of the older stuff on there that needed to be there, I doubt that they would go out of their way to go, let's do a Tailspin, or let's put out all. And not only that, but they're already out there. I mean, they released them all on DVD once upon a time. They're still, even the Oswald shorts, the 13 that they found before, they found even more. They're all on DVD. So there's ways to get them.
So those Walt Disney Treasures are one of my prized possessions. I did briefly think about selling them due to recent financial developments, and my wife was like, don't even think about that. You love those things, and they may never re-release them again. So thank you, honey. Also, as Ryan pointed out, and this is definitely a nice thing with the Blu-ray, is that they crop the Chippendale Rescue Rangers to widescreen on Disney Plus, but they keep the original aspect ratio on Blu-ray, so that's another reason why people might want to buy them. But anyway, I think that was a very productive discussion on a movie that ultimately won't matter in a year.
But it needed to be talked about, and
It need to be talked about. And if they ever make a real Rescue Rangers movie, if you take away nothing else, don't let Gadget marry Zipper. Nobody liked that.
Nobody liked that.
Well, and also I would prefer if it was, hand drawn. I think it would be a lot cheaper that way.
You think? Well, there is. I will say this, because we talk about, there's a lot of doom and gloom when discussing the Walt Disney Company today, for a good reason, but there is a lot of hope as well.
Right.
They recently reopened their 2D animation department. They put out
which Bob Iger would have never done.
No, he would not. I'm pretty sure that is not a Bob Chapek move. I'm sure that is a, or if it was, he had a gun to his head, because it's like, oh my God, we really need to do something, because Disney is going to be destroyed before it turns 100. Which, by the way, I should have put in my demo reel, but I did not. But we'll see. I got bigger things in the works, but they got that going for them. I'm hoping that, and then of course we have movies like Klaus that did really well. The 2D films.
We assume it did well because Netflix, of course. And this is one of the issues with streaming is like, when something goes up and the company says, it was our most watched thing ever. It's like, well, what does that mean? And what does that mean financially? Like,
right.
So
I don't know the metrics of how a streaming service works. I don't know. I guess I don't know how you would make your money back in streaming, but would
with ads. That's why they were always heading towards ads.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Probably why people are doing better on YouTube than they are anywhere else. But
probably.
I do want to point out that there's as dark of a place as Disney is right now. They've been in a lot worse predicaments. I mean, if you look back, 83, 84, they were on the cups of a...
Or heck, even the wartime, not the wartime shorts, but the compilation films, when they were making all those compilation films, right. They just did not have money to make a movie.
Right. Exactly. So we have been through multiple eras where not just Disney, but Hollywood and the industry in general evolves and it changes, and there are fads that people try and cater to. There are things that people will do to make a quick buck, and it'll go away in 2 or 3 years. But I wager, for every Chip and Dale, there's an Encanto. For every Space Jam: A New Legacy, there's a Zootopia, or there's something coming down the pipeline that we pray will be better.
Well, Warner Brothers made Space Jam, for the record, but
right.
But for every,
that's my point.
Yeah, let's say for every Chicken Little, there's a Bolt and Princess and the Frog.
right. I couldn't think of a Warner Brothers property. I wanted to give them some due, or I couldn't.
The Iron Giant.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, of course that was a long time ago, but
right, that's my point. Or the Tom and Jerry movie that came out a couple years ago, I think was a better spiritual successor to Roger Rabbit than this.
Right. Although I will say I enjoyed this a lot more than Tom and Jerry. Actually, Tom and Jerry probably would have been a lot better had it been like 70 or 80 minutes long. I don't know why the heck it was more than 2 hours. It's like, geez.
Well,
there's no reason for this to be that long. But that's another story for another day. But yeah, no, I agree. Disney will rebound. They will do better. And it's, I mean, right now our biggest issue is that they're treating their, like Encanto and Soul and Turning Red, these are all great movies, but they're just treating them like disposable entertainment. Like, put it on Disney Plus, get the sacrifice to the streaming gods. It's like, but it won't make money.
Well, Disney is smart in the way that they understand that the audience doesn't. In some cases, maybe they can't afford to go see movies in theaters. Maybe the ticket prices is too much. I mean, if you go to,
Well, Sonic's clearing on $500 million, so I mean, someone's got money to spend in the theaters.
Yes, but again, it's during the pandemic, you couldn't do that. You couldn't go to the movie theaters.
The pandemic is one thing, but like right now, like when they took Turning Red out of theaters, it's like, oh, because of the pandemic, it's like, what do you mean the theaters are open?
Right.
Theaters are open. Look at Spider-Man: No Way Home. It's breaking records. Like,
right.
You mean to tell me that you don't trust Pixar to bring in at least a quarter of that?
I don't know. I wish I were in the company and I could say, this is what's going on. But...
And not that I want to get into woke politics. I don't necessarily believe them, but it's like, it's not the greatest look in the world when it's like, oh, Pixar's movie with their first black character.
Right.
Disney Plus, Disney's first movie with a Asian and their first female Asian. Disney Plus, Lightyear, white boy in an action movie. Put it in theaters. Not a good look.
What about Mulan though?
That went well. Mulan was released in the pandemic, and they charged for it.
Oh, I was talking the original Mulan.
Oh, the original. Oh, the original. Yeah, no, the original. That was everyone loved that. Right. That movie made money.
Right.
Anyway, folks, that's going to bring an end to our conversation. If you enjoy any aspect, what do you think of Chip and Dale? We'd love to know below. And also check out Mike at his YouTube channel, Chucky Chicken Cartoons.
Thank you.
He's actually takes his time on his animation, so it looks a little better than most YouTube. If he had a bigger budget, I can only imagine what he would do with it.
A lot more. I also would encourage you to check out Dr. Dave's Diner, which is a good friend of mine. He is a clinical psychologist. He does a lot of really fun, uplifting stories. They're about 4 to 5 minutes long each. I'm helping him with his channel. He asked me to help him, so I'm doing that. And
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we are happy to help.
Yes. So, but please also check out the chicken. We got a Patreon, Chucky Chicken Cartoons. We're on all the social medias: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
Yeah. Maybe a web comic will come soon, co-written by yours truly. Maybe I've been pushing him for a while. So if you want to see that happen, leave a comment below. Anyway, and for everyone else, you know the drill. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly. Have a good one.
So long, folks.